Mhm.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, I think you have to agree. We are live streaming this on YouTube. Yay! This is the fun part. Okay, good. So now I know on my computer, I actually have to stop it on YouTube so that we don't echo. You might have to do the same in a second. It might pop up for you. But anyway, so welcome, John Lee. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Mhm.
We were supposed to have Spencer Thomas today, and he does active duty passive income. So he works with other military because he's military as well. And how do you create passive income? So number one, I know you know about passive income. I wanted to talk about that. But two, I just entitled the YouTube about the changes in 2021. And as you know as well, I know we talked about this earlier. Next week, we have an amazing attorney coming, Michelle Adams, and she specializes in short sales. And I say amazing because I've known her for so many years. I have referred lots and lots of business. I don't get any money for it. It's just, I know that she is amazing at what she does. And so yeah, I mean, she's amazing. So she has an entire PowerPoint presentation, including the new laws that are going to be applicable in the year 2021, which is when we're recording this, regardless of when you're listening to it. So next week is going to be amazing in so many ways. I've gotten a glimpse already of the PowerPoint presentation, so I'm very excited about next week and what's happening. But also, I wanted to say, I know you were also really good about this because Spencer Thomas was supposed to be here today, and he sent me a text message about an hour and a half ago and said he's super, super sick. I don't know if it's a COVID, but I got to tell you, I have had so many friends recently that have gotten sick. And I just, we all wish him well and that he feels better fast. I don't know, again, if it's COVID, but it's serious enough that he was not comfortable even just being in Clubhouse with just his voice or being on YouTube. He said he'll just have to reschedule. So, and we actually have gone back and forth to get him on for over 6 weeks. So we're really hoping that works out, and we'll get him back on another time. But we have the next 6 weeks already booked. We have, like I said, Michelle Adams coming next week. And the week after that, for Labor Day weekend on September 4th, we have Victor Bell. He's amazing. I can't wait to introduce you to him because he's so much fun. But he specializes in multifamily. And boy, does he know his stuff. He's a definite rags to riches and the hard knocks. He's very passionate. He's out in California. So how early, this is an hour earlier for John Lee, but it'll be 3 hours earlier to do this 8 a.m. interview live on YouTube, as well as we'll stream it to Clubhouse as well. But also, then on September 11th, which is amazing, that of course, Saturday, September 11th is, we're going to have 2 amazing guests, and it's very much about not robbing your home equity to pay for college. And that's such a common thing that people do is they rob their home equity. And I know it sounds a little bit like we're going off topic, but it's just so important that people understand there are so many different ways. It's like the insides of financial literacy in general is really understanding how do you pay for college and not rob your home equity. So it's really, really important. So that's on September 11th. And then September 18th, I'm going to be traveling. So that one's undetermined. There's somebody who wants to do it, but I just don't know for sure I can be in front of a camera at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. But the 25th, we have Sylvia Austin. She's coming, and she is our insurance guru. She also hosted a show on SiriusXM for a couple of years, and she is just an expert on all things insurance. And I've done lots of shows with her. I've been on her show. She's been on my show. And one of the things that, again, as real estate investors, so often people are like, oh, so where can we cut corners? One thing people cut corners on is insurance. Don't do it. You have a story about that, right? With a fire?
I've got a couple of stories about that with fires. Yes. In fact, I have a pretty good story about the arsonist that had other plans in the book that I'd be happy to give away, Secrets to Winning with Fred. And that taught me a valuable lesson on builder's risk insurance, which I had no idea existed until then. And there's a form of insurance, and I'm sure she'll tell us about that. But it's a form of insurance you can buy even when you're working on a property. It's a one-time premium. You don't get your money back when you're done, but it will protect you for liability or fires or anything else that may come your way. Very, very valuable. Insurance, don't skimp on it.
So definitely share this. So the rest of this, tell them the rest of the story, because that's, I think, also the powerful thing is we learn from other people's mistakes.
Oh,
so well, what happened?
Well, with that particular one, I bought some property. As you know, I buy these over the counter for back taxes. Okay, that's how I bought this property. It was several lots put together. It came with 2 houses. I didn't pay very much for this. It was just, I probably had I can't remember the exact figures, but I only had a little over maybe $1,500 into it total. Okay, and that's with 2 houses. Now these are not move-in ready. Okay, you gotta understand that. But one of the houses, I had the guys that worked on my places doing my construction. They looked at them, and one of the houses we were just going to tear down. The other house we were going to rebuild. Well, I was down in Florida over the holidays, like I do many years, and for several weeks. And they were getting ready to start on the house, and I get a call from the sheriff's office. Somebody had broken the house and burned it down. Yeah, the one. And of course, it was the one we were going to fix, and not the one we were going to tear down. It was gonna, we'd already started cleaning it up, and it wasn't gonna be worth a ton of money, maybe $80,000, something like that, after I put maybe 10,000 into it. So it was going to be a pretty good deal. Well, I didn't have any insurance because at the time I did not know that you could buy insurance on a property like that. I had checked with some, regular insurance people before, and they're, they said, no, once you get it fixed up, then you can buy your, homeowners, a landlord insurance or whatever. So I didn't know that. Well, this particular guy, the guy went to jail. Okay. He burned apparently a bunch of houses down in like a 3-county area. He was just, he was like a 25-year-old guy, obviously had some mental problems or drug problems or something, but he got in there to warm up, started a fire, and burned the place down. Without insurance, I was just out of luck. I had a burned out house. Okay, so I had to. Now that's you talk about changes. Okay, that right there, I had to make some changes of what I was going to do with the property. Okay, which brought up another whole thing, because what I ended up doing is I separated those lots, sold them all individually. Then I sold the house itself, the other house which we were going to tear down. I had a lady that actually bought that house and made it into a chicken coop for her free range chickens. Okay, that's another whole story in itself. But that's what I did with all these. And just to go even further with that story, I had somebody that was buying that lot, and then they were making payments like $50 for this double lot with that burned down house. Guy had these great plans, was going to fix it. He never did fix it. He ended up giving it back to me. It just sat there and sat there and sat there. I had a guy recently, and this just a couple of months ago, says, do you have any other property in this area? Because he was buying one for a couple blocks over from me. I said, well, I have this burned down house. Well, he went and looked at it. I sold him the double lot for $13,999 at $69 a month, 0% interest. He paid me $200 down. So he's going to pay me $69 and fix the burned down house over a period, however long that takes him. He's going to pay me for 16 years. $69 a month. So there's my passive income that goes along with my burned down house, which I didn't have insurance on.
Well, and that's what I really talk about today is change. Of course, Spencer Thomas, we really wanted to have him here today, and I'm so sorry he's sick. But his thing of passive income is so important. So number one, embracing change is something we'll continue throughout this hour talking about, because it's so important to me, especially in the year 2021. I've just, every time, it's so funny because I'll get something planned. Okay, we got it, and then it changes. And even like this morning when I got up, and now the guest I'm having on is sick. And I thought, well, you know what? John Leo probably replace him. And I went ahead and I text messaged you, and I'm so excited. Thank you, John. Thank you for being here. And thanks for sharing that story about the fire, because number one, when something happens, it's so easy for us to go to that negative place and be like, oh no, it's just going to be a loss. And, and also to criticize yourself. I mean, I've caught myself a couple times. I'm like, hey, I don't know anybody who's being as mean to me as I'm being to myself about criticizing, oh, I should have known, or I should have this, or who cares? Like, go ahead and let's turn the corner on change and go, so how can we make it positive? How can we learn from this? And number one, you always will have that story, John.
It's a great story. At the time, didn't seem so great. Just like you say, you go back, what could I have done? There's always something, but you know what? That's not how it works. You just go with what works.
And real estate is so important that you realize that and realize that change is okay. And I think that part of what we also do is we evaluate, is change good or is change bad? And in every real estate transaction, there's no two real estate transactions or deals that are ever exactly the same. They always change. And just part of it is embracing that change and being okay with it, and not evaluating it as, oh, this is so bad, I can't believe how horrible this is. Because even as I sit around and talk to real estate agents, so often they'll start to talk about, oh, this is so negative, I hate the blah, blah, blah. And it's so funny because, as you know, on SiriusXM, I was known for going, yay! And part of it was I was so excited to celebrate the small wins. Mm-hmm. And so often we don't do that because we're so quick to criticize ourselves, but we're not quick to say, hey, that was good, I did a good job. And I think that sometimes it's just really, really important to find the small things that you did right. Even with what you were just saying about the house that caught on fire, is there were still small things that were redeeming, that were good about it. And it was a life lesson that, quite frankly, may have saved you, a lot of money in the future, because now you know about that insurance, right?
Well, and you know what I think about this now too, Jennifer. What could have happened is we could have been, into this and had it almost done when that happened. And I still would not have known about the insurance. I would have not had insurance. I would have just had a bigger loss. Yeah. So that's, and measuring Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about, you celebrate the gain and not the gap. I know my wife and I were talking recently because we're building a house in the woods, and we've had a few things. Everything was going around real good. And then the guy who's on the bulldozer had a tree break the retina in his eye. He had a couple surgeries. He had a truck fall on him and almost cut him in half. So, all this stuff has happened. And it's like, we had this big delay now, and we're talking, and Laura says, well, man, what's going on? I said, well, wait a minute, let's stop and look at this. Look at a year ago. Where were we at? We didn't even own most of the property we own around the place right now. We didn't have the place cleared. We didn't have it ready. There's so many things. And I had to stop and think, yeah, well, a lot of things happen, but you got to go with the changes, whatever those are, those are. So we are, we look at the gain, we've really gained a lot.
I think that's the thing that is so important and that's also one of those things, you have an attitude of gratitude. I also talk about, viewpoint. So attitude's really important, or mindset. People call it so many different things, but also the viewpoint, because if you think about it, you can change your viewpoint on something. You can change the way you look back on something, and it completely changes how even you feel. Like the emotions you feel about a thing is because you have decided to change your viewpoint on it. And so often, like with real estate deals, and I know you have a great story on this, is changing your viewpoint on, say, for instance, you're a seller and you all of a sudden are trying to sell a property and you're just not getting the buyer that you wanted at the price you wanted. And you could change it. You can, like you were talking about, and I know the chicken lady always makes me laugh a little bit, because there's sometimes you're so out of your realm of thinking that somebody would want my property for chickens. Mm-hmm. but you've got to also look at how can you change to meet what's happening right now in the marketplace. And that's always changing. Nothing's staying the same. So will you share a story about that?
Well, a good story about change, just right what you're talking about here. I was talking to my sisters the other day, a couple of my sisters, and we were talking about my mom. She passed away back in 2014, and we all have different. We grew up during different time periods with her, and she would always, in fact, she would make me, frustrated. My sister said she made her angry because when something would go bad, she said, well, what can you do about it? And if you could do something about it, do something. If you can't, you don't worry about it. You have a state change. You just do the best you can. It's your plan B or whatever. And she would always say, well, did the sun come up today? Do we have food on the table? Are you going to have a bed to sleep in tonight? And it used to make us mad because she's absolutely right. That there's, yeah, things are always that. And I base a lot of the things I do today on my mother's philosophy and principles, just leave people better than they found you. And it's not that you found them, they found you. Somehow it just works out that way. And, and she used to do that with some of our renters and stuff. Cause I got my parents into some rental properties later on in their life, and, I think
That's
they did
wonderful.
I think they did it just to do something with me as an activity more than anything. And now that my dad's older and has, he's got some, advanced dementia and he's a little bit tougher. We still have a couple properties I've been trying to liquidate, but I always go back and think about her talking to some of the renters and the tenants. Sometimes they may be behind on their rent, and she'd bring the kids little gifts and treats. And, if nothing else, she had an apple that, out in the car or out in the truck or something, she'd give to them. And she, and it's, Mom, these people, they're never going to pay us. And, she goes, I know, but look at that baby. She says, well, this is what I can do just to make them feel better about themselves, And so, I always go back thinking about that. You just leave people better than they found you. And no matter what it is, the win-win-win situations, we've talked about that. And then the other thing is just keeping it simple. Everybody tries to complicate things. And I always say kissers, keep it simple, really simple, and just do the best you can. A state change, though, like you're talking about, that's one of the things I learned in my warrior camps many years ago, because, yeah, things are going to happen. Don't get stuck in your own head. Just when I catch myself doing this now, when something's going wrong, which it does, and this week's been challenging. I won't even get into this week. And it's still good, though. Overall, it's really good. But you just have to stop. Okay. Let's make a state change. I got to change the state of my mind to one that's positive. What can I do about it? Did the sun come up today? Do I have food in there? Am I going to have a nice warm bed? Okay, thank you, Mom.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's how I have to deal with it. And I do.
And I think that's so well said, because with real estate, like I said, it's like there's so much change. One thing I've heard, I'm licensed as a real estate agent in Virginia, DC, and Maryland. And so often I've been meeting with clients and both sides, from buyers to sellers, and they're like, should I sell now? Should I not? And the market, it keeps changing. It's shifting and changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should always remember that every real estate market is also a micro market.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Washington, DC, one of the things I used to tell people is it's block by block. Like these two blocks might be selling like hotcakes, and then the next block, it's not. And it could be, and you have to look for, here's a principle in real estate that is so critical, is to look for the indicators and what's different. What is that? Was that, I think it was the Sesame Street. Which one of these is not like the other?
Mm-hmm.
Which one? It's important to look and find out, why is it different? Why is that block not selling as well as these blocks? Is it because of the condo itself? Is it the management? Is it the year it was built? Or in that block, are all the streetlights broken out? And is there, other issues that are happening in that block that are changing and impacting the real estate values? And again, it's so amazing how just a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, completely different real estate, I want to say prices, but can be also just a different market on whether something's going to sell fast, it's going to take a while for it to sell. And so part of it also, we talked about changing your viewpoint, but also taking the opportunity to go out and observe what's happening in a neighborhood. And specifically, as I said, down to the details of, Are there old trees? Like if you look at it, one of the other things in DC that I think is interesting that I learned, and also coming from an island and moving into the Washington, DC area, I was fascinated by all of the architecture and all of the differences. And wow, there was like these really beautiful old Victorian row houses. And I was like, wow, this stuff is amazing. And then also you see this like extreme modern, all glass and steel. And you're like, whoa. I'm not sure if I like that, if it's out of place, or if it just looks gorgeous amongst all this completely different architecture. And then you look and see which one is selling faster. What is the trend? Oh, the trend is to having more light and less rooms. Whereas in these older Victorian houses, there's these tiny little rooms, tiny little boxed in kitchens, because you would close a door to a kitchen. That was the trend when these were built. Well, that's not the trend now. Everybody loves their kitchen open to their living room and dining room, and we're removing all these walls. So what is it that people are demanding and wanting, and understanding that now, ironically, people are starting to go back to, I want a bunch of little rooms because I want to be able to close the door, and that person in the family, whether it's the spouse or the children, that person is working on that project to close the door so they can do whatever it is, whether it's a video call or a video meeting, or if it's school, online school or classes, or if it's, now the need is different in the fact that I'd like to close the door to the kitchen, because if you're working on the kitchen and I'm still working on my business, I need there not to be a whole bunch of noise or distraction from what I'm doing. So needs have changed and trends have changed. And we don't know. Someone was just asking me about, so what about next year? What about 2022? I mean, it's really interesting. It's one of the reasons that for anyone who hasn't watched, next week we've got Michelle Adams on, attorney who knows short sales really, really well. And she's talking about all the new laws. And it's interesting because I've talked to banks, I've talked to different attorneys, and it is interesting, everyone's different perspectives on what's about to take place. And I've seen some pretty substantial numbers as far as over 90 days late on mortgages. And it's going to be a very interesting time over the next year to see what happens and how that affects real estate investors. And I think it's really important to understand the name of the game is going to be change, and be ready. I'm curious for you, John, in your, like, if you had a little crystal ball, what would you say is about to happen in the market?
That's always a great answer, or a great question. The answer is who knows? Well, here's what I do know. Okay. I know the market will change. I've been through the ice ages. You've been through a couple too. I call the ice ages when the market is just crazy and nobody knows what to do. What I do remember from a few years ago, and I believe this will happen again. Now, the short sales, the banks, they're changing the laws, like you said, I'm really looking forward to finding out some of the new things that are going to happen. As far as what we have, the rules we have to deal with. What I do know, though, is if you go in this as a problem solver, you'll be fine. There's a couple of years ago, this is now several years ago, I was working with some people because there was all these houses coming through. This is after, all the stuff happened in 2008, 9, 10, and a lot of people were upside down. Now, some people know the short sale market and that works for some, but some don't. We put together 10 different ways to make money and solve all the problems and make people happy on all them homes. Now, just a couple examples, you take some of those homes in 2010 and 11 that people thought would never be able to do anything with, just by making sense out of the payments and getting someone else to pay it. Now, there's a lot of strategies, as you know, that's what I kind of do, is get other people to pay for stuff, and somebody wants it. That's just the way it works. But those same homes now, you would have made hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and some people did do that. So what I see as far as a crystal ball, I don't know. It's always cloudy, okay? But what I do see, as long as you go in there with a problem-solving attitude, and just, win, keep it all simple for everybody. And just, go in there with that attitude, everything works out, because there are ways to make money and solve everybody's problem. Somebody else is going to need to move no matter what. And they don't care how much is owed on the house, as long as they can make the payments. Because as you know, everything revolves around payments when it comes to real estate, for the long term. So that's what I do now.
I agree. I think that as long as you decide that you're a problem solver, and that, I had an entrepreneur say this one time, and I just love this phrase. He said, as an entrepreneur, you learn to love that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Just love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And I think about when I get that emotion and that feeling, I think about it, it's like a brand new puppy. You love, 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 love that puppy. You just love, 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 love that puppy. Mm-hmm. And it's the same way you need to approach what's going to happen and all the changes that are going to happen, not only in the rest of this year, 2021, but also in next year, 2022 is going to be a really interesting year for so many reasons. And I think it's so funny because we're recording this or doing this live on YouTube. Oh my gosh, I just realized I didn't hit record. Oh, okay. Now we're recording and going live. So the last 30 minutes were live on YouTube, and now we have this. This is the 30 minutes we're doing, which we will actually put up as a podcast as well. So I'm here with John Lee, and we're talking about change in the real estate market. This is actually August 21st, 2021. So 21. And I think it's an interesting time to look at all the changes, because this year, as I said, we're going to be talking with this attorney, Michelle Adams, next week about short sales. And I'm super excited about it because there are so many changes that are happening with the laws. And she is really gracious about not only telling us about the changes, but she also she's created an amazing PowerPoint. So any of you want to listen next week, we'll be talking with her, and I can't wait for that one because there's so much to know. And anyway, change is the main name of the game. And as you had just said a moment ago, it is so important that we love the problem and that we have the mindset, we are problem solvers. And almost like, and I'm going to ask you now about your favorite. If you were a superhero, what would it be? Because in some ways, being a problem solver, that's what we're coming in to do, is be the superhero of solving whatever problems have happened. And not being the person, like I love, there's actually, which I'm sure you've probably seen, commercials sometimes. I can watch commercials that are super funny because they're so creative. And one of my favorite ones recently was the 1-800-JUNK. And they're like, no evaluation, nobody's going to make you feel bad for the fact that you've collected, 20 million coffee cups and, all the tiny little miniature blah, blah, blahs from around the, whatever, the globe, or all your snow globes, or nobody's going to evaluate you. All you do is point to it. And guess what? Boom, we take care of it. It disappears for you. And I love that because there's no evaluation. Because again, when people all of a sudden they have to move and they realize, oh dear, I have a collection of, 16 million little miniature blah, blah, blahs. I thought I would use them at some point. And, they're just so embarrassed. And I think that wearing that embarrassment, especially as we go through whatever interesting changes are about to happen in the real estate market. And I think we all feel that we're just right on the edge of it. So I know you always have been a superhero in many, many ways for people. And I'd love to know. So who would you be if you were a superhero?
Wow. I almost feel like I should ask my grandson, Danny, but he's not here today.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a birthday party. He's going to turn 5. I would have to say, let me think for a second, probably just the traditional Superman, because he's mild-mannered, goes through and looks at everything without being too emotional. But then when a problem arises or there's a need, he puts on the cape and goes right to it. That's what I'd have to just say right off the top of my head.
Yeah. And I think that we have to embrace that kind of superhero idea of we're a problem solver, we're a superhero, we come in here to help. And I've learned because more than one of my clients, or fellow real estate investors have said, Jennifer, you're a little too enthusiastic. And I'm like, oh. And so I've learned I also sometimes just need to tone it down a little bit, like I have, when we solved a problem, I immediately am like, yay. And even in a text message, I'll write, yay. And I've had a couple email me back in the last 6 months and go, I am not at yay yet.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. So not yet, yay. And then I asked the question, which one thing I've learned, which I know we talk about our mentors. One of them is Jack Canfield. He's one of the mentors that has taught me so much. He did the Aladdin Factor, which I just showed, and then also the book, The Success Principles. And I like them both. But one of the things that he always talks about is ask, ask, ask. And so even when sometimes it feels like, oh, someone just gave me a dagger in the heart when they said, no, it's not a yay. And I was like, oh, but we need to celebrate the wins, every little one. And I realized, it is really important that we celebrate the wins, but it's also really important to understand how to meet somebody where they are, because for them, they may not see it as a win for another 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So be cautious about, understanding where someone else is, but inside, I want you to be going, yay, I'm solving this person's problem. I'm helping them out. It's all going to be fine. And knowing that that's really, really important to people is knowing that you can make it through no matter what life changes come. And there are some really interesting ones, I think, that are around the corner for all of us. And it keeps changing. I mean, and that's like, I know you've heard me tell this story before, but one of the things that kind of just struck me years ago was I was, of course, I grew up in a little island, Key West, in the bottom of, the very bottom, very tip of Florida, closer to Cuba than it was to Miami. And we didn't have that many old houses. And then I moved to Washington, D.C. and I was like, whoa, look at these old houses. And I remember looking at this window and I was like, it looks like the window is sagging. Like, does glass sag? And then all of a sudden I realized everything is in motion. Nothing stays the same. It's at a different rate of speed than like a speeding car or maybe us moving or me talking fast. But I think one of the most important parts about that is realizing that nothing is going to stay the same. As much as we get in our little comfort zone, it's not going to stay the same. And being able to be okay with the fact, and I know that also you've personally, with your dad, I know you've also personally been going through trying to embrace change when there's things that are very, very personal that are happening. And when it impacts, we actually just recorded a podcast on how to talk to your parent when they can no longer live in their home. And it's just, it makes your heart hurt. And yet you want to make sure that your loved one is safe. So would you share a little bit about embracing change, especially when it's someone close to you, like a family member?
Yeah. And change is really all we have. That's all we can count on. And, well, with my father in particular, I spend, I've told you this, I spend Tuesdays with him now. And that's, I have a pretty busy schedule. I'll tell you, since all this craziness started about a year and a half or so ago, I am busier now than I probably was back then. I cannot hardly get away and hop in the car and go do something. I'm always on the phone talking to somebody. I'm in a meeting. There's people who need something or what, and that's okay. That's the change I've made, but I still have to go back and think, no, Tuesday is for my father. Okay. I don't really miss, but I do, I don't attend a lot of things and I don't do some things, but I block that time off because you have to. Now, I don't know how long he's going to be able to stay in this house because it's really getting more difficult every day. I mean, if just over the last 2 years, it has gone from, I don't even want to say 180 degrees because but it's close to that, almost night and day right now, because he just, some days like this week, he was really good. He talked about stuff he does, and I've been liquidating some of our assets we have together with our corporation and things. We had another fire that was it was a controversial thing with a multifamily. I got involved with somebody with a real estate. Well, it was somebody that was referred to me that was going to do auction, everything was going to go well, and it didn't go so well. I won't get into the whole story, but I've lost, between about $100,000 and $200,000, out of my pocket or out of our pocket on that particular deal. And without going into all the details, it's just, okay, what am I going to do? I did get upset, but only for about, well, longer than I normally do, but for a few hours. Okay. And I had to stop. What can I do? State change. I had to say, okay, what can I do? What can I not do? That's not going to change anything right now. That money is gone. Everything is gone. I'm going to make the best out of the situation. I am making the best out of the situation. As it turned out, there's a little piece of property there. I'm going to gravel in that I didn't sell with that. And we're going to make a parking area for the guy who he has a business just down the street. He wants to park his trucks there. He drilled my well. Okay. When everybody else is on a waiting list, he drilled my well and still hasn't given me a bill. We're probably going to work out a deal with this parking area for him. And this, we're talking, $10,000. How many people don't come to you for the $10,000? And I've called him since May saying, George, I got, you want to meet up? I'll give you a check. I got a check with me in my wallet. We're ready to go. And he just kind of, we'll meet up. And it's just, things like that. I don't know. And I believe, by doing the right thing, the right things come to you. But it is the state change. And it goes back to, you got to change your mind, about what's going on. And it's so easy, I know, for me to get wrapped up in my head. I've done that for so many years. What if? Well, guess what? What if it works? What if it's good? And in the scheme of things, it is. As long as you go in with the right intentions, I believe the right things come to you. You don't always see it on the surface, but they do come to you. That's what I believe about change. You have to change yourself first.
And part of that is just changing your outlook on it, your viewpoint on it, your attitude about it, all those different words, because it is really, it's change is going to happen. We're all going to have it over and over again. And speaking of which, I wanted to talk about your secrets of a billionaire. I recently found, so anyone who's watching this, it's so fun. So John Lee always, I don't know if you do it every single time, but you are so precious in the fact that your book, Secrets of a Billionaire, I'm creating wealth one small deal at a time. I think that's one of your original books, but I know you have a bunch of books now. I do love Fred. I was just talking about Fred on one of my other podcasts. Fred, I think that's such a great acronym. But anyway, I digress. This is so great because you gave me $1 million bill, which I love, in this book. And of course you wrote like peace symbols and all sorts of little symbols on the back. And it was just so beautiful, because when I look at this, I always remember that we all have the opportunity to change our mindset. And maybe one of the things that we need to reflect on is, how can we create $1 million? And every one of us can do it if we decide to. It's just a matter of actually deciding to change, because we get so into our patterns and we're like, oh, well, I'm just comfortable doing blah, 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 blah. And we don't think about, well, this $1 million, when you look at this bill, does it inspire you to do something different? Does it inspire you to write a book? Everyone should write their book. And not just, I love the fact that you have done this, because also so often people die with their story, with their secrets inside of them, and they don't let it out. And change is going to happen. We all need to figure out a way. It's like, sometimes it reminds me of being a kid, and you want to go outside and you want to go play on the playground, and then they say, no, it's pouring rain. So now you're going to sit in like a study hall thing, and you're like, no, I don't want to sit in a study hall. I want to go and play. Yet it's raining and they're not going to let you out. And there's going to be change. And so figure out a way to find your $1 million. But I'm curious, that I know there's a story behind these $1 million bills. Will you share your story?
Sure. The symbols I put on the back, that's developed over a period of time. This is my message to you, what I give to you. And I have a $, a heart, a smiley, a peace sign, a musical note, and a palm tree. And what that means is money, love, happiness, peace, harmony, and paradise to you. And that's what I give to everybody. And you were talking about the $1 million. I'm in the process right now of updating and rewriting my book, Secrets of a Billionaire, and I'm just about through with it. I've been really working on that hard for the last several months, just to make it more understandable, more user friendly, and make it more of a tool that somebody could use and actually go out and do these little deals. Because I just found that's very important. And it'll actually should be ready. My plan is by the end of September. Okay. But one of the things I've included in this, talking about $1 million, is my first $1 million plan that I ever wrote down on paper. And that's kind of a funny story in itself. And I'll send you a copy of it, but I'm including it. It's just, I still have the scrap paper it was written on. I was sitting there at a restaurant by myself, waiting for my wife to come back and meet me for work. It was a long day. This is maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night. I wrote with these little deals, because I just been doing a few of them, but I never wrote down an actual plan. So I wrote down how much I was going to do 2 deals every other month. It was going to take me 2 years by doing this after my expenses to make $1 million. And here's the magic of that, of writing it down and goal setting, though. That plan did not take me 2 years. It took me just a little over 8 months. And wow. I had my $1 million. Now that came with other lessons, though. Because the time of the year it was, I didn't think much about it. Well, at the end of the year, when the taxes came up, guess who didn't think much about that?
The IRS.
My Uncle Sam. Yes, the uncle we kind of forget about. Well, for the next 2 years, I kind of had to dig out of that. I was actually writing a check and mailing it off every Monday for $500 to make up what I didn't account for. Now, since then, I've learned a lot on how to account for it, make more business expenses and things like that. But that right there, but the point really of that, and the reason I include this in my in the update of the book, is because I want you to see how little deals can do this, but just by planning just a little bit, thinking ahead. Now that comes with changes too, because I thought I was just doing great. Oh yeah, I was spending money. I thought another lesson: don't go out and spend all your money before you pay your taxes. But it's such a. I'll have to show it to you. It's just a half a piece of paper with hand scratches on there, making $500 on a deal, and it comes up to $1 million.
And I think that's the thing is also creating a plan. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about as well, is that, as we have change, sometimes we also have to change our goals, and we may need to reevaluate them. And that doesn't mean that it's a failure. Mm-hmm. It does mean that we just need to change. And I think that the lesson that you had as well, I had a very similar one. It wasn't quite as dramatic when I first realized, because I had gone from just always working as a W-2 employee. And then when I started, as a licensed real estate agent and a real estate investor, I became a 1099. And of course, you have to pay your own taxes, but nobody tells you about, you have to budget for that. And so I realized that it was really, really important to do that. And that's one of the reasons that, obviously, as you know, many, many times we have in the clubhouse room with us, our tax expert, Linda DeMarlar, because it's really, really important that we look at the tax implications, not only when we're going into a deal, but also when we're exiting the deal, and that we're planning for it, and also embracing change with the tax code. It's constantly changing. And sometimes it's for the better for entrepreneurs, and sometimes it's not, but we need to be able to be okay with it and just keep on being creative as far as, okay, so if I was making money this way, maybe making money this way is better, but look at it and be excited about change. And excited might be a little bit too much for some people, because it'd be like, just like when I first met Linda DeMarlar, who's super excited about taxes, I was like, I feel like that's a little bit like fingernails on a chalkboard. I'm not excited to hear that sound. And I can't believe you're so excited. And then when I realized it's because, like we said earlier, she loves the problem. Mm-hmm. She loves it. Mm-hmm. She's like, you're an entrepreneur? Okay, well, look. And then she's like, in her head, she just can't help calculate. Ding, 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 ding. And she's going through all these numbers going, so do you have any children that you can hire? Oh, that could be a deduction. What about this? Can you do this? And it's just hilarious to just watch the way that she does change with the tax law, change with real estate deals, change with this. How do you do that? And how do you become successful regardless of the change. And like I said, we're in 21, we're August 21 and year 2021 again. And I think that the next 6 months of this year is going to be pretty interesting and a lot of change in real estate. But also I think that we're going to see amazing opportunities. Would you agree?
Oh, the opportunities are always there. You just have to find them. I don't, and as I always love it when people say that, like right now, they say it's a seller's market and, everybody's doing great and all this kind of stuff. There's still people that can't sell their stuff. There's still opportunities now when this changes, because it always does. We'll have another ice age. There's still major opportunities. When everybody's running away, that's when you want to look and sift, sort, and separate the deals, and just look for the problems to solve. Like you said, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I always look, what can I do to make this better? I used to think of myself as a perfectionist, and that was totally wrong, because I didn't find anything perfect. I found something wrong with everything. Now, no, I'd like to look at myself as a progressionist. What can I do to just make it better? It's not that there's anything wrong. It's just we can make it better for everybody. And especially the more difficult it seems. As you know, Jennifer, somebody puts a for sale sign out in their yard, or they call you or something, they just got a problem that needs solved. All that is a help wanted sign. It's not a for sale sign. It's a help wanted sign. And that's really how simple it boils down to. And if you keep it that simple, it's just, that's what's worked for me.
I love that. That actually gave me goosebumps. It's not a for sale sign. It's a help wanted sign. And it is, especially when I see somebody who's a for sale by owner, I'm like, ooh, that is definitely a cry for help, because there's so many opportunities we have there to help somebody, because they don't, and again, know their situation until you ask, and then make sure you are really listening to the answer as well. Because I think that's also a huge pitfall. And you probably have, and again, for me, sometimes it's my enthusiasm. Oh my gosh, I got it. And I didn't finish listening.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, let me just shut up for a second and finish listening to the full extent of your explanation, of your problem, of your situation, of whatever's happening, and also really understand what is needed, what you need as a seller, or even as a buyer, what is needed and what is wanted before I go, I got the solution. And again, sometimes my enthusiasm gets me into trouble, and I realize, okay, just give it a minute. And I'm curious if you have a story about that.
Well, there's so many, but what you said right there is exactly right. And I've had to catch myself, and I see a lot of other investors that don't do that. They go to jump to their solution, where sometimes it's best to stop back, take a step back, and just listen to what the result they want. What is the end result that you actually want? Now, there's always a story that comes up too there, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in the story and say, well, I could do this, and this, but that may not be what they're looking for. Maybe they don't want to sell their house at a discount, and they just want some payments for a while till they get their head together. They might have inherited the property. They don't know. And you can make this work. You might be able to do a short contract with them. One of the ways to make money when people are upside down is the same way. Maybe just take over their payments in a few months or something like that. Get it to somebody else that could do it. Maybe do a 2 or 3 year option with them. That gives them time to breathe. You don't know. Just listen to where they want to go with this. And sometimes they need some time. I mean, every situation is pretty much like that. If you're a wholesaler, especially, I see this happen all the time with, investors are the same everywhere as far as, the wholesalers. I shouldn't say they're all the same, but a lot of them are.
Okay? A lot of similarities for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And they just get right to the chase. I got to have this at a discount. It's got to be 65 cents on the dollar after repair value. It's got to, and well, maybe it does. Maybe it does. Maybe that's not the solution for them, and it doesn't matter. Some of these wholesalers want to go in there and make their quick $10,000 or $20,000. And that's great, because there's a great market for that. It's a very good way to do it. Good way to solve people's problems quickly. Not everybody needs something done quickly. You have to listen to them. What do you want ultimately? And then listen to the story,
And I was gonna say, and I think one of the other things I'm gonna bring you my other, if you're watching us on YouTube, I have this Aladdin's lamp, which I love. And to me, this is also what we bring as real estate investors, is we have Aladdin's lamp. We can definitely rub the lamp and poof, like all sorts of magic comes out. And that's our creativity, is we can be really creative. We can actually solve the problems in a way that just seems absolutely magical to other people. And so I think it's really important that you, again, like I asked you earlier about what superhero would you be? And you said Superman. Well, what would you be? Could you envision yourself as being like Aladdin's lamp? You know, if you wanted to give somebody 3 wishes, again, make it as playful and as fun as possible, and always learn that you need to find out what would they wish for. So if you had Aladdin's lamp right now, great question to ask, you know, a seller who's in trouble and not really sure what they're going to do. And they're scared. They may be embarrassed. They may feel ashamed. All sorts of things are going on there. And you could say, well, if you had Aladdin's lamp, if I handed you Aladdin's lamp, what would you do with it? And what would be your 3 wishes? How would you change everything right now if you had those wishes? You could have anything. What would they be? Right?
Well, what I'll do this. I'll say the same thing that I go through when I'm interviewing my students with my applications to, before we get started with our trainings. And the first thing I always say is, what is your vision? Okay. And that's an open question, but what is your vision? Okay. That's the first thing I would say, and let them tell me what their wish would be. The second thing is, what is working well for you right now? And have them tell me what's working well, because some things are and some things aren't. And the third thing I just say is, what tools do you need to get to your vision? And those 3 things right there, they're kind of open, but because everybody has their own path. And when I've asked other things in the past, it didn't quite work as well as this, because then they just tell me exactly what's going good, what's not going good, what do I need, and just I don't like to focus on the negative, and that seems to bring it out a little better. But I like to know your vision. What is your vision? And we're talking about things changing. Well, you might say, I want a beach house in 5 years. Okay, well, you're not going to know right now. I want to live on this block. I want 4 bedrooms. I want 4 baths. I want, but the closer you get, the more detailed it will get. And that's how the changes will come about. Like, right, you may be thinking, well, I want white cabinets, I don't know, in your kitchen. But then down the road, it may be, well, they're striped now and polka dot is the style. So that's what or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just, the changes will come with that. But that's how I would look at it. I just ask people what their vision is, and, just what's not quite right and what's working well.
And I think that's really great, is especially open questions where somebody can really give you an answer that is not just a yes or no. I mean, I don't know how many times I've asked somebody a question, they give me a yes or no. I'm like, that was totally not, that doesn't help me help you. And I'm here to help you. So how do we figure that out? And I think there's going to be so many changes going forward in this next year, not only the next 6 months of 21, but also 22, I think is going to be filled with all sorts of changes in the real estate market. But as you said, there is always, always, always an opportunity for a real estate investor who is interested in helping and wanting to be a problem solver. Bring out your Aladdin's lamp and say, if I could give you 3 wishes, what would they be? Find out what's needed and wanted, and then see if you can be creative. That's the other aspect about that. And I know you're really good at that, is being creative when a situation, it doesn't look like there is a solution. Create one.
Yes. There's always a solution. Always. In fact, one of the things I did, I give out certificates to my students, and it's a PSD is what I give you. And that's a problem solving billionaire. Because really, if I convey anything to any of my students, I just want to show you how to make the good out of each situation. Because they're not always just, these easy deals. I mean, people say, I'm kind of, I've been told, you turn $200 into $2,000 with about 2 hours worth of work. Yes, I've done that thousands of times. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you might make $100 and it might take you 200 hours. Now it doesn't. Now that's a little extreme, but I mean, you just have to look and make the best out of every situation. That's just how it works. Yep. In fact, if you do want a copy of my book, I'd be happy to give you one. Go to my website, thebillionaire.com, and I'll be happy to give you a copy of Secrets to Winning with Fred, the failed real estate deals. It's got the stories, what we're talking about here. And I could fill up volumes that I could fill up Google with those stories.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I love your stories. That's part of the reason I just always find you're just one of my favorite guests ever. I mean, from when I had on Sirius XM to now, I just absolutely love, love, love your stories. And the fact that you're just so down to earth. All the successes, challenges, whatever, you were so down to earth, and you don't let it make you arrogant or and I've seen so many, especially educators, who become very arrogant. And I love the fact that you're always interested in learning and
Mhm.
interested in helping others. So thank you, John Lee.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's always such a pleasure. I always learn so much. You put the yay in my day. You really do. Every time I talk to you, that's just it's just you just make me smile. And I always go out and just try to pass that on to everyone I run into for the rest of the day. So thank you for that. Mhm.
Well, as I always do at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to lift your voice and say yay with me. And
Okay.
after we finish, I'm going to stop the recording, stop the YouTube, and end our clubhouse room. But John, if you'll stay with me for a few minutes afterwards, I would love the
Sure.
after show, which will just be us.
Sure. Happy to.
Okay, so go ahead and let's lift your voice with me and let's say yay as we end today. I'm so grateful for 2121 and for John Lee. Thank you so much for joining me. And we hope Spencer Thomas, he gets better and he's feeling better, and we'll see him another time. So lift your voice with me and say yay. 3, 2, 1. Yay!
Yay! Hey.
Okay.